Lee, it's crazy times for sure, and
Yes.
crowdsource the truth viewers, people who are listening to the backstory on Sputnik Radio, they know that even though we've all been enduring a pandemic and the difficulties with job losses and everything, I personally don't know anybody who's been through more in this year and a half than you. So you're a good guy to help people understand how to not let the news make you go crazy.
So okay, so between the divorce which turned weird, but let me actually go back about 10 years. Uh about 10 years ago, my best friend at the time, Andrew Breitbart, died suddenly at age 43. And a month after that, my wife, who's expecting twins, gave birth to our son Ezra, but our daughter Colette had gotten the cord wrapped around her throat and was dead. So she had to give birth to a stillborn baby, and I mention that because it was 10 years ago, and it factors into politics. There's not a question in the world that part of the this is how bad politics is. My wife and I were relentlessly attacked on social media, Twitter specifically, by a paid operative, a guy
Wow.
who was working for a guy, Brett Kimberlin. And
Whoa.
not only did they mock Andrew's death with pictures and everything, like, you know, but they literally mocked the death of my daughter. And they went after my wife at the time. And on top of all that, I had to keep working, right? I was
Yeah.
the money. I was the sole breadwinner in the house, and so I had to keep working. But the going after somebody's, and I give props to like one of the things I covered 12 years ago was Occupy Wall Street. And if you remember Occupy Wall Street in New York, Jason, remember there were protesters on Brooklyn Bridge. And the story was that the cops arrested a journalist in that. Do you remember that at all?
I remember Occupy Wall Street, but I wasn't really very politically involved at the time, and I can't say that I knew what it was all about.
So the story was the cops had arrested a journalist.
This is
And
you and Shane, right?
no, 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 no.
But it's you on the
There,
left.
well, we were at Occupy, but
I mean, in this picture.
we covered it. I'm not, hang on one sec. It almost certainly is. I'm not looking.
Yeah,
Hang on.
I think it is. It's definitely you. I can't tell if it's Shane or not. But
That's
you're
no,
there.
okay. So that's me on the left. On the right is Brandon Darby.
Ah,
And
Brandon.
this is one of the Occupy Wall Street people who we interviewed. So the story was that a journalist, a New York Times journalist, no less, had been arrested by the cops. So this is an anti-cop narrative, okay?
Right.
And turned out that journalist was named Natasha Leonard. Natasha Leonard was one of the organizers of Occupy Wall Street. And I figured this out because she gave a talk at this. Do you know Blue Stockings in New York? Are you familiar with them?
No. Blue stockings?
I'm not sure they're around anymore. Blue Stockings was a commie bookstore in New York. And
Ah,
they were as clear as they can be that they were a commie bookstore. Now, Natasha Leonard, commie, but let
yeah.
me tell you something about Natasha Leonard. I got her fired from the New York Times when my piece came out in Breitbart about how one of the organizers, she wasn't a New York Times journalist, she was an organizer. That's why she
Wow.
got arrested. She got fired. But you know what? God bless Natasha Leonard. She's a decent human being. I had gotten her fired. She didn't agree with me politically. But when these people were attacking the death of my daughter and my wife, Natasha Leonard was one of the only people to stand up publicly and say, this is completely wrong. This is horrible. And anybody not speaking out against this, screw you, basically. So
Right.
I say that to point out that someone who you might think uh, is my enemy, right? Politically, we don't agree. But you know what? She's a decent person, and she spoke out against it. But a lot of people didn't speak out against it.
Let me
And
address that for a second, Lee.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
this concept of enemies, I mean, just because you're politically against somebody, they're actually not your enemy. And I
right.
appreciate what you're saying because I think there's quite a lot you could disagree with a decent person about, but to mock the death of a person, particularly somebody's
Yes,
friend, and particularly somebody's baby,
baby.
you
Yeah,
got to be a psychopathic, like, that baby has no political, that's just a
no.
tragedy.
And if you ask me, was that a factor in my divorce? Well, the duh, right? Obviously. I mean, imagine you were married to somebody who was working at Access Hollywood or whatever, and now they're getting attacked. You're getting attacked personally by a paid political operative from Brett Kimberlin. This person was paid by this guy, Brett Kimberlin, who I'd written about. And,
Yeah.
and,
Who's
and
paid by
the,
the Clintons, by the way.
yes, exactly right. And connected to Barbara Streisand and George Soros, so the
Brett
died shot.
Kimberlin is connected to Barbara Streisand? How?
She funded him.
What?
She
Did
funded
I
him.
tell you that I've been to Barbara Streisand's house? Do you know that story?
I think you've mentioned that. Yeah.
Wow, why was she? See, I am very suspicious of Barbara Streisand. She dated Pierre Trudeau. Her
Right.
autobiography is in the library at the London School of Economics where Fabian socialism was born. What the hell is up with Barbara Streisand?
I don't know, but she was one of the people who gave money to Brett Kimberlin, was the convicted serial bomber who it turns out was at the heart of Russiagate as well, working with Alexandra Chalupa. That's in the story. But Brett, Andrew and I were reporting about Brett. And right before he died, Andrew called me literally 2 days before he died and said, we got to get back in the Brett Kimberlin story because he dropped out of it. And sure enough, he was at the center of it. So I'm just saying, it's this kind of thing that makes politics very difficult, not just for me, although for me too. I mean, as you know, I've passed out a few times in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And they don't know why. They have a heart monitor, not a. It's literally just monitoring what my heart's up to. I think that the loss of Andrew and the loss of my daughter a month later may have been factors in that.
I think yes, it's tremendous stress.
And what you learn is, because I researched how people react to the death of a stillborn baby, and it's like PTSD, right? So if you knew somebody who was in Vietnam, they could be having effects from that for 30 years, 40 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's well known. And so the problem, of course, is I don't know if it was PTSD. I don't know what it was, but I'm throwing it out there. And the reason I'm saying this is not, the other factor here is that men and women deal with stuff. I don't want to offend any gender radicals out there, but men and women deal with stuff differently.
I think it's just a fact. There's a lot
It's just a fact.
less bar fights at all girls' schools.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yes. And so nothing I'm saying whatsoever diminishes. I'm not even comparing. I felt horrible, obviously, for my wife, and I still do. But
Yeah.
one of the added pressures as a guy, this is for the ladies, one of the added pressures for a guy is we're not supposed to talk about this stuff, right?
Well, that's maybe getting a little bit old school.
It's getting a little old school, but you know what I mean. it's still
You got
for
to
a
be
lot of
strong, and you got to keep
right.
going to work and take care of the
Yes.
family, and not,
Yes.
particularly when you have kids. Maybe it's not that old school. You have to be this pillar of
Right.
strength.
And it means that if it was a factor in my passing out a few times it's happened now, it's probably because playing amateur self psychologist here that I had to bury it. You see what I'm saying? So
I think
like
this is very valid.
no, and the reason I mention this, a couple reasons. First off, the way politics was 10 years ago, when I think back to those days, I go, well, that's when it was easy, right? Right? Things are worse now than ever.
Right.
And and with the it's controversial. I'm just going to say, when I say with the pandemic, I mean with the experience everybody's experienced with what's called a pandemic. I don't want to debate that. I'm not saying
Right.
there wasn't, saying there wasn't, but that's what I'm talking about. The lockdowns, for instance, really
Yeah.
affected people psychologically. And
You had to move, your job changed, everybody's life has changed tremendously.
but the good part is there was a good side to it. God works mysterious ways. While I didn't choose to come up to South Dakota this time, my wife had taken our kids up here. I'm so glad I've been in South Dakota the last year
Less
because,
stress.
and I could go out to restaurants every day, right? There has never been a time I've been in South Dakota I've not been able to go out to get coffee, to go to a restaurant. And for the past few months, it's been really free and clear. And so that's been the upside to it. Now, if I'd been stuck locked down the way a lot of people were, a
In
lot.
DC. And
Yeah.
you rely on public transportation. You don't drive, so you'd
Yes,
be in a really tight spot.
that's right. No, the whole thing, everybody's stressed under it. And my point is not about me, actually. I had this experience, so I've had to think about it a lot. But and I'll go back to the ladies for a second. I know so many women who've quit politics, smart women who got involved in politics a little bit, saw how horrible it is, and had to get out.
Yeah.
Had to get out. And they're smart people. And uh, so I'll call it burnout. And furthermore, let's throw in another couple of other things. Let's say you've been banking. Let's say you were a big Trump fan and you were banking on stuff that was, well, guess what? That's an added stressor. Trump's gone. Let's add another one. There were operations, and you and I have talked about it before. People like Jack Posobiec, even people like Steve Bannon. I'm doing this class on the Clintons and the Russiagate now. And I was talking the other night. I think I've shown you the emails I have where I was warning Steve Bannon about this. Bannon betrayed Trump. Sev Gorka betrayed Trump. Raheem Kassam is betraying everybody watching now. And Cernovich and Posobiec, I've talked about those guys. And when I mean betrayed, I mean really betrayed. Like I had warned Steve Bannon about the Ukraine thing in 2017. And Bannon, who knows me, hired me, said I was the best reporter. It's not like I was somebody random writing to him. It was me who has Steve's private email and his private phone number. And what I'm seeing, and I've been seeing it a lot in the past few months since Trump left office, especially, is burnout and a kind of again, a year ago I was on the psych ward for a week, and I talked about it because I'm not ashamed of it, and I wasn't put there. I went there voluntarily, And I'm glad I
You
went
said
there.
the same thing about it that Billy Joel did. Made
Which
him
is,
realize he's not crazy. These people here are.
oh yeah, when you go, I was at the George Washington University Hospital, and have you ever seen people who are homeless on the street screaming and tearing their clothes
Uh,
off or something?
like two
Okay.
hours ago.
Well, okay, so I was in with those people. That's what I'm saying. No, but
It's scary.
that's who it was. And so I felt like comparatively, uh, and the doctors were very clear that my problem wasn't pharmacological. It was, a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And but
I
I
would
had
think, sorry to interrupt, Lee, but I would
no
think
no
that they probably, doctors in a place like that, see a lot of cases along the lines of what you're describing, where somebody's under so much stress, they feel like, well, maybe this is what it feels like to be crazy. Let me go to the hospital. And when you really deal with a psychiatrist who examines mental illness, they can tell the difference between somebody who's just on the edge of being stressed out and somebody who's deeply mentally ill.
I had very good the group therapist we had was a an Indian woman. She was from India. And when she's dealing with a group of group, she's a group therapy person. So she's dealing with a group of people, very diverse backgrounds and very diverse levels of nutty.
Problems. Right.
And at one point she said to me, she said, I used to be a journalist in India. And so we talked about journalism. I had another amazing experience where I didn't have any access to electronics, which, by the way, is that
In
good
the
or
hospital,
bad?
you mean?
Yeah, it's kind of good, right? I wasn't checking my phone for news updates every day. I had 1 week of like none of that. And I had an amazing experience where there was a piano and I said, can I play it? Because I don't have anything to do. And I like playing keyboards. I'm bad at it, but I like doing it. And she said, yeah. And there were these two other patients who were in there who were both in much worse states than I am. But they started playing, and oh my God, they were incredible. The guy playing keyboards who took over was really good. And this girl who I saw leave and then come back, who I think had been suicidal or something, she started singing. And immediately the therapist and I were looking at each other like, what's, and I had an hour of listening to music live from people improvising it. It was absolutely one of the most incredible experiences of my life, really.
Wow.
Of just beauty, you know what I'm saying? Of pure beauty. And with people who were troubled, And
Well, I wonder if you help them too to kind of focus their minds on something that's not getting caught up in all the complexities of what we're talking about. It's just this like free-flowing natural thing.
And you know what, Jason? That's exactly where I'm going with this. What you just said, not about them, but about the way not to go crazy. And I'm seeing it from a lot of people, friends of mine. I'm seeing it from people who people who may call into the show, people I talk to. And we'll talk more about the Patreon thing, but let me say this. Why not go crazy? Like, is there a reason to not go crazy? And my answer would be that the reason not to do it is because I don't want to see more smart, good people burn out and go away. Right. Do you know who would love to have them burn? Do you know who's not burning out or going away? The bad people. So Soros. Soros, he's going to check out at some point, but he's not going to go, screw it, I don't want to do politics anymore. All these people say horrible stuff about me.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care. Right.
No.
And it's much easier for somebody out there, maybe watching now. I'm going to try to talk you not down, because here's the other thing I don't want them to do. I don't want people to give up practically either. And let me explain. Let's use the COVID-19 thing as an example, okay? forget what, it doesn't matter what your opinion on it is. It doesn't matter what you think may happen, anything else. Here's where we are today, right now, mid-July 2021. California just re-announced the mask mandate. I'm seeing more and more stories about the Delta variant, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So practically speaking, whatever you think about the COVID-19 thing, you think it's fake, you think it's real, whatever, it doesn't matter. It looks to me like, and tell me if you think I'm right, there's going to be more restrictions coming in the next couple of months.
I agree. Right? It looks that way. Just to be certain here, though, Lee, the Los Angeles Times is saying that they're still wondering if they will need a new mask mandate. I don't know if it's been. Have you heard otherwise that it's been implemented?
They kicked it in on Saturday, past Saturday. Ugh. It's in place, yeah. And Vegas has started to institute mask.
Wow.
But so, here's my point. If you have a business that would be demolished if another mask, right? But you need to think about these issues. You can't not think about them. You follow me?
Yeah.
And forget politics. Forget your opinion on any of this stuff. You need to think about it to keep yourself and your loved ones as safe as you can be. I said this to people today. One of the things that happens when you start to, and this does make people nuts, is when you limit your options. I had somebody today said something like, well, it looks like there's going to be more mandates, and I think people need to fight back or acquiesce and lick boots or something like that, right?
Pick.
Right. Those are not the only options. Right? So, and the person was like, well, can you think of another one? And I said, I'm going to start with an easy one. Move.
Right.
Now, that's not easy. I understand moving's hard. I get it. But you know what? If you're in New York or LA and you think things are going to get bad there, you still have the ability to move to South Dakota or Florida or wherever.
Whatever, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Or maybe move upstate in New York. Maybe, New York's a big state. And some places, Manhattan may not be the place to be, right? But I don't know, Ithaca? I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying it might be a little less intense.
Less stress,
And again, everybody's circumstance is different. Maybe you got a family, maybe you got a bit, whatever.
Now, Lee, I hate to stop you, but we are almost out of time. And there's a couple things I want to tell people about before we make the transition to the sponsor-exclusive segment on patreon.com/Stranahan. People can sponsor Lee, and he's got all kinds of things that are going to be starting up on the Patreon page with Citizen Journalism School and some more training stuff. But it's a great way to support independent journalism and this show. Of course, we always do the simulcast on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And Lee, today, we're going to be making Crowdsource the Truth history because after a year of testing and development, today's show will be the very first to be live streamed from the Crowdsource the Truth video server. So sponsors on Subscribestar will be watching with that new technology. And I have a special surprise right now, Lee, for you and the viewers. I don't know if you got a chance to see this. I put it up on Twitter the other day, but I'm going to take you back right now for a brief moment to 1997. Check this out.
Oh, yeah.
If you've been watching Lightwave videotapes, get ready for the next wave.
My name's Lee Stranahan. This is my brother Ken.
The Lenny CD-ROM is a 2-hour interactive video tutorial featuring Lee and Ken Stranahan. You'll learn the secrets of today's top Lightwave effects artists as they reveal the techniques used to make
that was my brother,
movies
not
and
me.
TV
Yeah.
shows. This 2-disc CD set isn't a bunch of rehashed material from the internet. It features all new tutorials
Look at all
not
that
available
hair.
anywhere else. An interactive video index and online lightwave help leave ordinary videotapes in the dust. Additional tutorials from Andy Freerking of Dynamic Realities and PJ Foley of Foundation Imaging cover both Particle Storm and Fiber Factory. If you're serious about lightwave, you'll love the Lenny CD-ROM.
That was 1997.
If you've been watching lightwave
everybody
videotape,
else was doing VHS. This was an interactive, random access video training series.
No, that was great. That was before I even had fallen in love with my second wife. So that's how long ago that was. I was not with my second wife at that point.
That's right.
So-
Shane had just been born a little bit before that.
Yeah, a little bit before that. Yeah, 5.
But so
he was
we've
5.
got just a couple. No, this was 1997. Was he 5? Maybe. Yeah, he was an infant. Right.
Yeah, he was.
But
an
anyway,
infant.
we're out of time here on YouTube, Lee, but people are going to be able to watch a deep dive, a high dive, and a deeper conversation about all the topics. By the way, I love the way you've been setting up the shows and paying it off with a real meaningful, like almost philosophical view on what's going on today. So people are going to see more of that in under 5 minutes on patreon.com/Stranahan,
But I'll just say
subscribestar.com.
it's also practical, and we'll show you how to make money too. I'm just saying,
Absolutely.
it's all of that.
We'll see everybody in less than 5 minutes. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm looking